My name is Jack, and I need to tell you about the day that was supposed to mark the beginning of my forever. The day I'd dreamed about since I first met Mollie 3 years ago. Instead, it became the day everything I thought I knew about love, family, and loyalty shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Mollie and I had been together since college. We met in a coffee shop near campus. One of those classic, almost too perfect stories where she accidentally grabbed my latte, and I grabbed her cappuccino. I still remember exactly what she was wearing that day, a yellow sundress and white sneakers, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. When she realized the mistake, she laughed, not one of those polite, embarrassed laughs, but a real, genuine belly laugh that made everyone in the cafe turn and smile. "I'm so sorry," she'd said, still giggling. "I'm completely useless before my first coffee." "Well, technically, you do have your first coffee," I'd replied, pointing to my cup in her hand. "It's just not the one you ordered." That made her laugh even harder. We exchanged numbers right there, and she insisted on buying me a replacement latte to make up for it. Within weeks, I knew she was the one. She had this infectious energy, this way of making even the most mundane moments feel magical. Grocery shopping became an adventure. Doing laundry became a dance party. She'd leave little notes in my textbooks during exam season. "You've got this, smarty pants," or "can't wait to celebrate with you tonight." When she laughed, really laughed, her whole face lit up and her eyes crinkled at the corners. I fell hard and fast. For 3 years, we built a life together. After graduation, we got our first apartment, a tiny one-bedroom with a leaky faucet and neighbors who fought loudly at 2 a.m., but it was ours. We adopted Murphy, a golden retriever puppy who became our baby. I'd come home from my entry-level marketing job to find Mollie on the floor, covered in paint. She was trying to become a freelance artist, with Murphy chewing on her brushes. Those were the happiest days of my life. We talked endlessly about the future. Mollie wanted a house with a big backyard for Murphy and the 3 kids she imagined us having. She'd already named them Oliver, Charlotte, and Sophie. I'd tease her about planning our entire lives when we weren't even engaged yet, but secretly I loved it. I loved that she saw forever with me. We'd talk about growing old on a porch somewhere with rocking chairs and iced tea, watching our grandkids play in the yard. Every milestone felt like confirmation that we were meant to be. So when I finally saved enough for the ring, a princess-cut diamond that took me 8 months to afford, working overtime and skipping lunches, I planned the most elaborate engagement party I could manage. I wanted everything to be perfect because Mollie deserved perfect. She deserved the fairy tale. I wanted it to be perfect. I rented out my parents' sprawling backyard, the same place where I'd celebrated every birthday as a kid, where my family gathered for every holiday. String lights were woven through the oak trees, casting a warm golden glow as the sun began to set. There were tables covered in white linen, centerpieces of roses and peonies, Mollie's favorites. I hired a small band to play jazz standards, the kind of music she loved to sway to in our kitchen on lazy Sunday mornings. The bar was stocked with her favorite wine, and I'd even arranged for a dessert table featuring her childhood favorite, lemon meringue pie. Everyone was there. My parents, Richard and Susan. My younger sister, Emma, who'd flown in from Seattle and kept giving me excited thumbs-ups all evening. My extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Friends from work, from college, from different chapters of my life, all converging to witness this moment. And of course, Evan, my older brother by 4 years, the person I'd looked up to my entire life, despite our complicated relationship. Evan had always been the golden child. Star athlete in high school, successful in business, charming in a way that made people gravitate toward him at parties. But beneath that polished exterior, there was something I'd started to notice more as we got older, a sense of entitlement, a belief that the rules didn't quite apply to him the way they did to everyone else. Still, he was my brother. We'd shared a room growing up, built forts in the backyard, gotten into trouble together. I trusted him. Or at least, I thought I did. The party was in full swing by 7 o'clock. I'd given a short speech, thanking everyone for coming, my voice cracking with emotion as I talked about how much Mollie meant to me. People clinked their glasses, called for the proposal, but I wanted to wait just a bit longer, until the sun dipped below the horizon and the lights would create that perfect, dreamy atmosphere. That's when I noticed Mollie wasn't by my side anymore. At first, I wasn't concerned. These kinds of events can be overwhelming, especially for someone like Mollie who, despite her outgoing personality, sometimes needed moments alone to recharge. I figured she'd stepped away to catch her breath, maybe touch up her makeup or call her mom, who couldn't make it from Florida but had insisted on a play-by-play of the evening. But 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then 20. I checked the bathroom near the kitchen. Empty, though someone had left lipstick marks on a tissue in the trash. I asked Emma if she'd seen her. She shrugged, distracted by conversation with our cousin Michelle about wedding venues. Maybe she's fixing her dress? You know how fussy those straps can be. I smiled and nodded, but a strange feeling had settled in my stomach, something I couldn't quite name. Intuition, maybe. Or fear. That primal instinct that tells you something is wrong even when you can't articulate what it is. I started searching more urgently, weaving through clusters of guests who patted my shoulder and made jokes about cold feet. Getting nervous, Jack? Uncle Tom bellowed, his breath smelling like whiskey. Don't worry, the ball and chain isn't so bad. Everyone around him laughed. I forced a smile and kept moving. I checked the front yard, thinking maybe she'd needed air. The street was quiet, our cars lined up along the curb, but no Mollie. I called her phone. It rang somewhere in the house, probably in her purse. I asked my mom if she'd seen her. Mom was refilling the wine bottles and barely looked up. Oh, honey, I'm sure she's fine. Probably just powdering her nose. But it had been almost 30 minutes now. The band was playing At Last by Etta James, the song I'd requested for the proposal. The timing was getting away from me, and more importantly, a cold dread was creeping up my spine. Then I went inside the house. The interior was quieter, the party sounds muffled by walls and windows. I walked down the hallway toward the guest bedrooms, my footsteps muffled by the carpet my parents had installed 2 years ago. Family photos lined the walls, Christmas pictures, vacation snapshots, my college graduation. I passed the bathroom again, knocked, listened. Nothing. My hand reached for the doorknob of the first guest room, the one we'd always called the Blue Room, because of its faded nautical wallpaper from the 1980s. My mother had been meaning to redecorate it for years, but never got around to it. This was the room where I'd slept during college breaks, where Emma had stayed when she visited last Christmas. I turned the knob slowly, expecting to find it empty, maybe with coats piled on the bed the way they always were during parties. The door swung open, and there they were, Mollie and Evan, in bed, together. For a moment, maybe 2 or 3 seconds, though it felt like an eternity, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. It was like looking at one of those optical illusions where your mind tries to make sense of shapes that don't fit together. The image before me didn't compute. It couldn't be real. But it was. Mollie's dress, the beautiful emerald dress she'd spent weeks picking out for this night, the one she'd tried on for me 3 times asking if it was perfect, was on the floor, discarded like it meant nothing. The blanket was pulled hastily to her chest. Her carefully styled hair was disheveled. Her lipstick was smeared across her face, and I noticed with a sickening jolt on Evan's neck. Evan was shirtless, sitting up against the headboard with an expression that wasn't quite guilt. It was closer to annoyance. Annoyance that he'd been interrupted. Time seemed to stop. I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I could hear the distant sound of the band playing outside, someone laughing, completely oblivious to the fact that my entire world was imploding. Jack, Mollie started, her voice high and panicked. Her eyes were wide, mascara already starting to smudge. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My hands were shaking. I felt like I might vomit. It's not what you think, she said, and somewhere in my paralyzed brain, I recognized this as the most cliché sentence possible in that moment. The thing people always say in movies when they're caught cheating. And somehow that made it worse. This wasn't a movie. This was my life. This was real. Evan had the audacity to smirk. Actually smirk. That same cocky half-smile he'd used his whole life when he knew he'd gotten away with something. Come on, man. Don't be so dramatic. Those words, don't be so dramatic, broke through my paralysis like a lightning bolt. That snapped me out of my frozen state. Dramatic? My voice came out as a roar that surprised even me. What the hell is wrong with you? Evan rolled his eyes. Actually rolled his eyes, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Look, it just happened, okay? Nobody planned this. It just happened, I repeated, my voice going up an octave. You just accidentally fell into bed with my fiancée at my engagement party? Mollie was crying now, tears streaming down her face, mixing with her mascara in black rivulets. Jack, please, just let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you ended up in bed with my brother, while everyone outside is waiting for me to propose to you. I turned and ran back toward the party, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not in front of them. The hallway seemed longer than it had a minute ago. The family photos on the wall felt like they were mocking me. All those years of happy memories, lies now. Everything was a lie. People were laughing, dancing, completely oblivious to the fact that the guest of honor's life had just detonated. I found my parents near the dessert table, my mom holding a plate of pie, laughing at something my Aunt Marie had said. My dad had his arm around her shoulder, a beer in his other hand. Mom, Dad, you need to come inside. Now. My voice must have carried something, some terrible urgency, because the smile dropped from my mother's face immediately. Jack, what's wrong, sweetheart? Just come. Now. They followed without further question. Emma, who'd been nearby, fell into step behind us, her face already etched with concern. Jack, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. I didn't answer. I just marched back down the hallway, my parents and sister trailing behind me, and I threw open the door to the blue room again. By this point, Evan had pulled on his shirt, though he hadn't bothered to button it. Mollie had wrapped the blanket around herself like a shield, her face blotchy and red from crying. I expected outrage. I expected my parents to scream, to demand answers, to throw Evan out of the house and comfort me. I expected my father to grab Evan by the collar. I expected my mother to slap him, to call Mollie terrible names, to be on my side. Instead, my mother, my own mother, who had tucked me into bed every night as a child, who had bandaged my scraped knees and told me everything would be okay, stepped between us, her hands raised like she was calming a wild animal. Jack, sweetheart, you need to calm down. Calm down? Those two words echoed in my head like a bad joke. Mom, did you see what just happened? Did you see them? I pointed at Evan and Mollie, my hand shaking. My father sighed. Actually sighed. Not a sigh of disappointment at Evan, but a sigh of exhaustion, like I was a misbehaving child having a tantrum in a grocery store. Son, I know this looks bad. Looks bad? I was screaming now, not caring who heard, not caring that the people outside might hear. My brother just slept with my fiancée. At my engagement party. While everyone is outside waiting for me to propose. Emma stood behind our parents, her face pale, her eyes darting between all of us like she was trying to understand a language she didn't speak. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. My mother's next words are seared into my memory forever. I hear them sometimes when I can't sleep, playing on loop like a nightmare I can't wake up from. You know, Evan has always struggled, Jack. He's had a hard time finding stability. Don't ruin the night over a mistake. A mistake. She called it a mistake. Like he'd accidentally spilled wine on the carpet or forgotten someone's name. This wasn't a mistake, Mom. This was a choice. They chose to do this. They chose to betray me. My father put a hand on my shoulder, and I shrugged it off so violently he stumbled back a step. Let's not blow this out of proportion, he said, using that condescending voice he'd used my whole childhood when he thought I was overreacting to something. We can talk this through like adults. Talk this through? I looked at each of them in disbelief. My mother, with her perfectly styled hair and her pearl necklace. My father, with his golf shirt and his placid expression. Emma, looking horrified but silent. And Evan, sitting on the bed like he was holding court, that smirk still playing at the corners of his mouth. There's nothing to talk through. I want her out. I want him out. Both of them. Now. My mother's expression hardened, her lips pressing into a thin line. This was the face she made when she'd made up her mind about something and wouldn't budge. Jack, that's not fair. Mollie just got confused. She's been under a lot of stress with the wedding planning. And Evan, well, you know how persuasive he can be. That last sentence hung in the air like poison gas. What does that mean? I asked slowly. You know how persuasive he can be. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. You knew. It wasn't a question. It was a realization, dawning on me like ice water being poured over my head. You knew, didn't you? How long has this been going on? More silence. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. I looked directly at Evan, forcing myself to meet his eyes. How long? He had the decency, if you could call it that, to look away. He picked at a loose thread on the blanket. A few months. The room spun. The walls seemed to tilt. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. Months. They'd been carrying on behind my back for months. Every family dinner where Evan had sat across from me, asking about the wedding plans. Every text from Mollie saying she was out with her girlfriends. Every time Evan had come over to hang out, and watch football, staying after I'd gone to bed. Every time Mollie had been too tired to spend time with me, claiming work was draining her. It had all been a lie. Everything had been a lie. And you all knew? I looked at my parents, really looked at them, searching for any sign of shame or guilt. My mother's eyes glistened with tears, but she didn't deny it. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. We didn't want to upset you, sweetheart. We thought it would pass. We thought if we just didn't say anything, maybe it would blow over and fizzle out, and you'd never have to know. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting me? The laugh that came out of me was hollow, bitter. You thought keeping this from me was protecting me? You let me plan an engagement party. You let me buy a ring. You let me stand in front of everyone I know and talk about forever with someone who's been cheating on me with my own brother, and you thought that was protecting me. My father shifted uncomfortably. We thought you'd be devastated if you found out. We thought it would break you. So you decided to let me find out like this instead? You thought this was better? Mollie spoke up from the bed, her voice small and shaking. Jack, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, I do. It's just, Evan and I, we connected in a way that... Don't. I held up my hand. Don't you dare try to explain this. Don't you dare tell me about your connection with my brother while you're sitting in that bed. Emma finally found her voice. This is insane. You're all insane. Jack, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I believed her. The horror on her face was genuine. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. My own family had conspired to keep this from me. They'd watched me plan this party for weeks. They'd watched me work overtime to afford the ring. They'd listened to me talk about my future with Mollie, about the house we'd buy, the kids we'd have. They'd watched me prepare to commit my life to someone who was betraying me with my own brother, and they'd said nothing. I can't believe this, I whispered, my voice breaking. I can't believe any of you. Jack, please, my mother started. No, no more. I'm done. I turned and walked out. Not just out of the room, but out of the house. Out of the party I'd spent months planning. Out of the life I'd thought was mine. People called after me as I strode through the backyard. I heard my name, Jack. Jack, where are you going? But I didn't stop. Faces blurred past me. Uncle Tom tried to grab my arm. Hey buddy, everything okay? I yanked away and kept walking. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I just drove, taking turns at random, my mind a white noise of rage and grief. I ended up at a parking lot overlooking the river, a spot where Mollie and I used to come sometimes to watch the sunset. Of all the places to end up, I sat there and watched the water reflecting the last rays of sun, and I tried to remember how to breathe. My phone started buzzing. First Mollie's number, then Emma's, then my mom's, then numbers I didn't recognize, probably guests wondering what happened. I turned it off. I couldn't deal with any of them. I sat in that parking lot until it got dark, until the temperature dropped, and I started shivering. Murphy was at home in our apartment. I'd have to go back eventually, face the space Mollie and I shared. But not yet. Not yet. The days that followed were a blur of pain and disbelief. I couldn't go back to the apartment immediately. I couldn't face it, couldn't face her things, couldn't face the bed we'd shared, the life we'd built. I called my friend Owen, someone I'd known since high school, someone who wasn't connected to my family or to Mollie's social circle. Can I crash on your couch for a while? I'd asked. Of course, man. Whatever you need. He didn't even ask why. He must have heard something in my voice. I stayed with Owen for 2 weeks. His apartment was small, cluttered with video game consoles and empty pizza boxes, but it was safe. He gave me space when I needed it and distraction when I didn't. We played games until 3 a.m. We ordered too much takeout. He didn't press me for details until I was ready. When I finally told him everything, he looked at me like I'd described an alien abduction. He searched for words. That's the most messed up thing I've ever heard. Your own family? They knew. They knew. And they didn't tell you? They thought they were protecting me. I laughed bitterly. Funny how that worked out. Mollie called constantly those first few days. Texted. Long paragraphs begging me to talk to her, to let her explain, telling me she loved me, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that it didn't mean anything. She showed up at Owen's place twice. The first time, I hid in the bedroom and made Owen tell her I wasn't there. The second time, I opened the door. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair unwashed, wearing sweatpants and one of my hoodies. Jack, please just talk to me. What is there to say, Mollie? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to keep doing it for months. She flinched. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. And now you do? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Get out, Mollie. Jack! Get out! And don't come back. I closed the door on her sobs and blocked her number. Evan didn't reach out at all. Not a call. Not a text. Nothing. That somehow hurt even more than everything else. At least Mollie had the decency to try to apologize, even if her apology meant nothing. Evan just disappeared. Like I meant nothing to him. Like 30 years of being brothers could evaporate without even a conversation. My mother called once during the first week, her voice tight and controlled. Jack, sweetheart, I think you're being unreasonable. This kind of thing happens in families. People make mistakes. The mature thing to do is to talk it through. Being reasonable? I'd repeated. Mom, what part of this situation calls for me to be reasonable? Well, you storming out certainly didn't help matters. You embarrassed everyone. I embarrassed everyone. I actually laughed. I'm sorry my reaction to being betrayed by my fiancé and my brother embarrassed you, Mom. That's not what I meant, and you know it. We just think that family therapy might help. Dr. Morrison, you remember her, don't you? She's helped several families work through similar situations. Similar situations? How many families has Dr. Morrison seen where a brother sleeps with a brother's fiancé? Jack, there's no need to be crude. I'm being crude? I'm being crude. Yes, you are. And I think once you've calmed down, you'll see that we all need to sit down and discuss this like adults. I hung up on her. She called back 3 times. I didn't answer. Emma was the only one who seemed to understand. She came to Owen's place a week later with boxes, my things from the apartment. Mollie had apparently moved out. Emma sat with me while I went through everything, photos of us that now felt like lies, the engagement ring I'd never gotten to give her, Murphy's favorite toy that I'd have to figure out custody for. Where did she go? I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. Emma's face told me everything before she spoke. She's staying with Evan. Of course she was. Of course. They weren't even pretending to hide it anymore. And Mom and Dad? They invited her to dinner last night. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Of course they did. I didn't go, Emma said quickly. I told them they were insane. I told them what they did to you was unforgivable. But Jack, they don't see it that way. They think you're being stubborn. They think you should forgive them and move on. Move on. As if betrayal was something you could just get over, like a cold. 2 weeks later, I heard through Emma that Mollie and Evan were officially together. My parents had thrown them a welcome to the family dinner. Evan had apparently always had feelings for Mollie, and once they'd acted on them, they'd realized they were meant to be. That's the story my mother told anyone who asked. A love story, as if I was just collateral damage in their romantic destiny. I haven't spoken to my parents since that night. I haven't spoken to Evan. I sent Mollie a single text telling her I'd handle Murphy's adoption papers and that she could keep everything else. I didn't want anything that reminded me of her. Now months later, I'm rebuilding. I moved to a new city, started a new job, found a small apartment where Murphy and I are figuring out our new normal. Some days are harder than others. Some days I wake up and forget, just for a second, and then it all comes crashing back. People ask me if I'll ever forgive them, if I'll reconcile with my family. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe one day. But right now I can't. Because they didn't just betray my trust, they showed me who they really are. They showed me that Evan will always come first, that my feelings will always be secondary, that loyalty means nothing when it's inconvenient. I thought blood was thicker than water. I thought family meant something unbreakable. I was wrong. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. And sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. My name is Jack, and I'm still standing. Barely, but I'm here. And maybe that's enough for now. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.